excited about this show.
I'll tell you what, it's always a great topic, and it doesn't get any better with the subjects that we talk about. You know, every week you say like, all right, what are we going to talk about now? What are we going to talk about now? But this one, I kind of like it, and I didn't realize there was a lot. We talk about it all, but it's a lot. Why didn't you get that job? Why didn't you get close to get that job? What happens when you did? I mean, but there was a lot of stuff that I did was looking, and I couldn't believe it. But everybody knows we'll be right back after this video. Oh, I see what you did. That's your comment. Is that your comment?
I did.
Oh, okay. It says LinkedIn user. I assume this will be a relatable topic to a lot of people. I hope we can at least
Yeah,
one person make. That's your right. That's
yeah,
yours. Okay.
yeah, I did.
Okay. I'm like, huh. I said that's how you do it. That's not bad. So how's everything going in your world? All right.
Everything is good. Everything is good. So
Good.
I'm excited about this topic because looking on LinkedIn and you see how many people are looking for jobs, and when you read more about the amount of interviews they had and didn't get hired, and so I think I've lived through that too, and
Yeah, I
this is
think
just
I think we all did. Once I typed it in there, I was like, "Ooh, there's a lot of stuff on that. There's
right,
a lot of things that what goes right, what goes wrong, how do you feel."
right.
It is like that roller coaster. But before we get to that topic, I got to bring this up real quick. And I was talking to you before about a gentleman, and I got to tell everybody, just listen. I'm not telling you to do it or try it, but put a job up on Indeed and all that, and we always tell you, Amy even tell you, hey, listen, go to that website, go to the person on LinkedIn. This person took the extra step and went to my personal Facebook page, a messenger on a Sunday, and I was like, oh, delete or accept. I thought it was spam, so accept. Here's a great candidate that was with a resume saying I really want this job and I really want it, and I'll tell you what. Well, today he was in front of that person for an hour doing an interview. So I don't know how you feel about it. Some people might say that's a little too far, and
Right.
some might not. But listen, it's open game. And to me, if you get that right person, I don't really care when they send a resume to me. I don't care if I'm on my phone. I'll look at it.
Right. Well, I think just like what we do, helping people find jobs, I feel like that we're a bridge, and,
Yeah.
give them the opportunity. I mean, 30,000 people,
Yeah.
and a lot of them come on here and we showcase their skills.
Yeah.
And then, there's tons of recruiters and hiring managers. So, you're bridging that gap. But being able to do something different outside of the norm, I mean, who doesn't send resumes? Everybody does. So do something
Yeah.
different. So,
I took it as positive. Listen, that was me. Some people might not, but I'm like I told you, Facebook to me is just I put my family up once in a while, but I'm not into it as much as that. But would I tell somebody to do that all the time? Like, would I say, hey, try this way?
yeah,
Listen, I don't know how I feel about it still, but all I know is the kid was really good. He was really good fit. Listen, we'll find out whether he gets it in a couple days, and that's going to lead us into this conversation.
right,
Everything went great from messenger to the job to the GM. Now we'll see.
right,
If that pays off and he goes through all the works, I got to give that kid credit,
right.
because then he's going to sit back with that job, very high paying job, for just reaching out to me on a Sunday
On Facebook.
on Facebook. So anybody out there, just saying, not saying you want to do that, but I don't know if I would do it because we're on video, so he knows what you look like. He can look at LinkedIn, and then
Right.
they can look at your page by looking at Facebook. I don't change that much. I don't put all those great filters on that everybody does on Facebook. So, so but no, that leads to the subject, the same thing. You got that interview, you really feel pumped, then you go home, and it's been I really don't like doing interviews on a Friday because that means that you have to wait all weekend. But if you
Right.
do it on a Monday or Tuesday, and all of a sudden you're not hearing anything for 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, and it goes on to a week. I think everybody knows that feeling.
Right. Well, I think being able to really do your research on that company, finding out if you know anybody that knows anybody at that company, getting a feel
Right,
for how long it takes, and knowing that you don't follow up with them the very next day, but you give them a couple days, and then you reach out and let them know you're excited and just wanted to see if there was any information, just but at least touching base.
right.
But doing it overkill is also a bad thing as well. But
Yeah,
um,
you second guess yourself. I think everybody's been through it. I think we all have. Should I
right,
have said this? Oh, maybe I shouldn't have said that. Maybe I should have said this. And it just goes over on your head,
right,
And I try to tell people, I always look at when I was applying for jobs was, look when it was posted, first of all. If it's posted on a Monday and you apply, or over the weekend, you applied and they get a hold of you, say Tuesday for an interview, it's only been 2 days.
hmm,
Got to stop and say to yourself, because we're recruiters, is give it a week or two because you're going to get applicants. Then you got to set up interviews, and that can really be issues there too, because that comes right into this subject as well.
right.
You're waiting on other people. So as a recruiter, you're getting those people up there, and if that other parts don't move, that's another thing that you could be saying in your mind, wow, this went very well. Why am I not hearing something? And
Well, being able to ask the questions. So when you are going in for an interview and being able to ask the questions and have that one of the questions that you ask,
right,
when can I expect to hear from you? Or how soon you want to be making a decision, kind of thing.
I think you can ask that. What?
Yeah, and then you get an idea. Are they just now interviewing? Do they expect to make a decision quickly?
Right,
That way you can gauge your angst and anxiety and make sure that you can follow up accordingly. But I think that that's just one of the things you got to do and prepare when you're doing your interview,
right,
and you ask really good questions, and that has to be one of the questions that you ask for sure. But keeping in mind too that there are so many companies in
right,
some positions that already know who they want to hire. And
right.
I think that if you feel like you're a shoe in and you don't get it, the 50% or 25%, however you want to look at it, chance is that they already know who they want. They just have to go through the
I
interview
know.
process. No one has to like it, but
I know.
you and I know that happens all the time,
Well,
but you
when you
have
say that, that's what my thought process right there. Because when you say it and you listen to what you just said, it's true. You're like, oh, yes, I know it happens. Some people don't know that happens, and they need to do that because I don't know whether there's so many different laws or different things. A company can get in trouble. I don't really think, but it's part of the process. It's just like when you post that job and internal people apply, you have to interview them. You've got no choice. You have to. That's the way I feel. I mean, even if the person in it is qualified, I still believe you have to come after that because it's only right with inside the company. And let's face it, I love hiring within. I really do, if it's the right fit. But
right.
if not, you might have to go out. But you got to know that in the beginning. You have to.
Right. Well, and then there's some companies when I was working in recruiting that we would post a job and it would be out there for two, 2 or 3 days for internal only. And then
Right.
if there wasn't enough interest
Okay.
internal only, then it would go out to the external. And I thought that was fair. I like that. But you can argue both sides of that
Yeah.
because then you've already stalled 3 days for it to go external. But I'm like you, David. If we've got somebody internal and they apply,
Right.
Just have a conversation with them and let them
Yes.
know, either do a true interview or let them know, we're not going to do an official interview with you right now. These are the things that we would need in order for this position.
Yeah, I
Give
could see
them
you doing that. You're right. Yeah, I could see you doing that, and then trying to lead that person to what he has to do to get to that next level.
right,
Right.
because
That's what you're saying.
you know that people, being a director, I mean, we're busy.
Right.
Managers are busy. We're all very busy, and we got to make sure that we put the time and energy in where it's needed.
Right.
And to say nothing to somebody internal is certainly not the answer. But
Right.
being able to at least acknowledge they exist, that
Mm.
they applied, and that they have interest, show them what they need to do to get ready, or they're just simply not going to be a fit for it because they don't have
Mm.
set experience. But at least have the conversation. Just don't ignore.
Because you have to, and there again, it's one of those things, a conversation that some people don't want to have. They'll think it's easier just to interview them and boom, say no. But I
Right.
think as an internal, I agree totally. I think you need to, as a leader, I think it's great to tell that person why not no, why no.
Right.
They're internal, so you could say, listen, you need to have. It's not so much a degree and all that because if you have that experience, but some jobs do require a degree. Some of them do. There's no way around it. If a company says, you must have a bachelor's, then everybody says, well, that's not fair. Well, you know what? It's a company's decision. If they
Mhm.
want somebody with a bachelor or a master's, guess what? There's nothing you can do. Experience all you want. That's what they want. And they have the right to do that. You know?
Right.
You
Yeah.
have the right. I wouldn't. I always look at both. That's me. Because I always say as I evolve. As you evolve, you kind of sit back and be like, all right, okay, you see both sides, and that's that conversation. And I think that person really respects that.
Yeah, and I
You
mean,
know?
I think you owe it to the internal, and
Yeah,
I mean, it's not always about saying things that people want to hear, but
right,
sometimes you have that hard conversation, and I've had those conversations a few times, and I don't spend an hour with them, but I did
right,
spend at
mm,
least 15 minutes to let them know, look, I saw your resume. This is what I'm looking for. This is the where the gap is.
right.
And if it's feasible, things they have to work on, or a degree or whatnot. But yeah, I think all internal definitely needs at least a conversation for sure.
Yeah, and I agree. Kind of like, like it says you're talking afterwards. The waiting game they call it, and it's that waiting. How long do you wait? I mean, I know majority of people might say the next day to give a thank you. And that's respectful. You
Mhm.
know, I know this is the new era, and I think a lot of candidates don't know what that is really. They've
Right.
never done it. So if they're younger generation, they don't realize it's just kind of to get it out there. I guess they'd like to see. And it was nice to hear back from that recruiter. Now it's been 5 days. You've sent an email, a follow up. What happens when you don't hear from that follow up? Do you wait another day or two? Do you make a phone call? And what do you think? What do you think you would like? What would you like that? Sometimes, let me back to I like that phone call or email because sometimes you get so busy. I'm not saying this happens to the
Mhm.
best, but it does. You you overlook for a day or two. You're like, oh shoot, you have something
Mhm.
else you're working on, and that's one thing there too. But how long do you think it's good to wait?
Well, as you're talking, I'm thinking of a couple different scenarios. So I was hiring a ramp agent or passenger service agent,
Right,
and they got one of the persons got overlooked, and he called me,
right.
and I was
Oh,
curious
that's tough.
why he fell in the no pile because he should have been in the yes pile. And I talked to the recruiter, and it was by accident. So had he not called, he would not have gotten it. But because he called, we found out that he was in the wrong pile, and
Right,
we quickly, got him, ready to go and got him hired.
right.
Also, keep in mind, like if you're in like salary type position,
Oh
um,
yeah.
that
Mm.
when you
I
don't
know where you're
find
going with this one.
somebody, I mean,
Yeah.
that there's you can't chase it. I mean, if you're not hearing from somebody, there's a reason because typically, when there's an offer being made. You're waiting for the person to take a couple days to figure out if they want it, negotiation, salary wise. So now you're talking 3 or 4 days. And then you're waiting for this person to take it or not take it. And if they
Yeah.
take it, then you've got to let everybody know. If they don't take it, then you got to go back to your second person. So that's where the not hearing is you want to be careful on how
Oh,
much you
yeah,
push.
there she is. There you went. You went out of it shut off, but now it's back.
Oh goodness.
You're okay.
Okay.
Yeah, you're. I said she was just doing that on purpose. She does that once in a while. She likes to mess with
Talk
me. So,
away.
yeah, pop, you went away, but I know, like you were saying, that waiting game you were talking about.
Yeah. So, but just being able to not be overly aggressive, but just know that if they're going to contact you for the job, they will, or they're going to say thank you, but no thank you. So
Right.
the level, entry level, sure, make that phone call because you could have accidentally been put in the wrong pile.
Right.
For an upper a salary type position, if you're not hearing anything, then there's
Yeah.
probably a reason for it.
Yeah. Sometimes levels, and when you have a good candidate, they know if it's a
Right,
hire, they know it's going to be a month. Sometimes it could be up to, by the time, like you said, by the time everything's scheduled, and that's not a bad thing. It is when I always talk about, like, are you currently working? I love it when they say yes. That's just me because I'm like, whew, I don't have to worry about it. I always just say, don't quit your job. Okay, just don't quit.
right,
Don't quit it until until you get that yes, or then you can say you would like to give a notice, but don't do that. When you're not, that's the whole thing about that waiting game, and it talks about that waiting period, the stress, your emotions. You don't want to let your emotions get into that, because I've seen people in the past. Listen, if you've had an interview with a general manager or even the top managers, you want to try to. You don't really want to email them constantly either.
right,
You need to keep it back. You need to bring it back, and work with that recruiter, because I don't. I'll tell somebody, no, don't do that, or don't connect with them don't ask them on LinkedIn or anything like that. Hey, could you say thank you? I guess maybe, I go back on it different ways. You can convince me one thing to say yes, but then sometimes that's over. I think that's what gets it when you step out of that bounds. Like, do you go to LinkedIn and say thank you for these other 2 or 3 interviews, especially when they're the panels, and you've been on panels, I know that.
yeah,
The panel ones, and people can know who you are. They just look you up in the company, and as long as you know one email,
right.
you know everybody's email. So, I
Yes.
mean, I don't know how you feel with that, but that's just the way I feel on that part.
Yeah, I mean, I after interviews, I would either send them a note. Nowadays, it's I'll figure out their email and just let them know thank you for their
Right.
time, and just so my name is out there. But I am not one of those people that I'm gonna be hounding and to make a decision to make a decision. Like if they want
Right.
me, they're gonna connect with me, and if they don't, I'm not gonna beg. I'm not gonna do that at all.
Right. And do you feel it's okay to say, listen, I think it's okay. It depends. Here I go. Depends, right? I'd say okay, but you're still interviewing for the job. If it's been only day one on Monday or Tuesday, you just started.
Right.
I have to be honest. Say, listen, you're the first or second interview. We're going to get some interviews here, then inside house, and that's no matter what company I've ever been with. Just breathe. You got to breathe and go through the process. But there again, that emotions, that first 2 weeks it's an emotional ride. And it was saying how you should write things down. Just because you don't get that first one doesn't mean you're going to get that second one or the third one.
Right.
I find that as you do the job search and you go through some interviews, then you really get good at it,
Right.
right? I mean, you write. I always just learn. I have to, ever since my injury, I always have to write things down. I have to write it down. You
Well,
know?
I there have been times that I will go and I will look on. Gosh, I'm drawing a blank on it. There's a website that you go on and be able to look at how the companies are doing and
Right.
people rate them
I think
and
I've heard that. I think I've heard of that.
be able to find out what questions they ask, talk about their benefits, openings,
Right.
things like that. and get an idea of like the questions that they do ask, so you're prepared, and just start writing them down, and then write down your answers so you are well versed on what you want to say and how you want to say it.
Do you think? Well, what am I saying? I think I know I do. You can really tell if you really sit back after you and you dissect your interview. You can tell if it was rushed. I think you can tell right away if that recruiter doesn't really, you know, isn't really care for you. Not care
Mhm.
for you, but isn't going to go that direction. Maybe, you're not doing your best. Maybe you're not pumped up. There's all different things for the interview that can go wrong.
Right.
But if that recruiter seems distracted, it could be a sign that you're on that wrong path.
Right.
And I think there's always a way to tighten it back up, because I just think I would notice it right away. And I think when you've always done recruiting and you've been in staffing, those feelings, those, oh, this person's not interested. They're not even, especially if you're interviewing, okay, your phone, okay, hold on a second. Or you type something. Come on,
Yeah.
have a little respect there. You got to drop what you're doing there. And I find that, but the distraction, that's those things that we're talking about here that could be, all right, if you felt that way, you got to write it down and just say, what did I do there? What did I say? Was it the recruiter not interested? Was I not the right fit? And I think you both come away from it feeling that way.
Well, I mean, you got to read the body language too. I had a
Exactly.
head
That's a good way.
contact me for a couple VP positions, and I went and I interviewed with the team. And this guy stood up with his arms crossed and just talked at me, and I'm just sitting there looking at him, and he's looking down at me, standing with his arms crossed. I'm like, wow, this is not. I mean, I'm being brought here to talk about two VP positions, and I've got to sit and look at this guy stare down at me. There's no way. So obviously, nothing happened there. But
Right.
I think it's important for people to know that yes, you're being interviewed for a job, but you also have to interview who
Yep.
you're going to be working with. That
Right.
is key. And that was just for that example. I mean, for
Yeah.
me to be there talking to this guy and how I felt looking up at him with his arms, crossed, I'm like, I don't feel good about
Right.
this. I mean, I really like the two positions. That would have been really great. But
Right.
under him, mm-mm.
Nah.
No.
And you can just tell, you can just tell that, you know, um, I don't know. Like you said, would you want to work for somebody like that?
Right.
First
And
of
I
all.
think that so it's not just a one-way interview. And I think that this is what I want people to go away with from this podcast is that, know what you're worth
Right.
and don't settle. And if you don't feel good about it and you don't have a vibe, then you can walk away and say no. There was a company that I was getting ready to interview with,
Right.
and I read all of these horrible results on this one of the websites, and I'm like, it was negative after negative after negative, and I'm like, there is no way that I'm going to, I mean, people have an opinion, sure, but there's no way that
Right.
I'm going to go there and with all of this negativity. And I called them and I said, look, I can't. And I told them why. And they ended up taking down some of the posts that they were able to,
Yeah.
responding to some of them. Like, I'm not. So,
Yeah.
the interview has to go both ways and you've got to be prepared. And I think that, even you got to make sure your resume, I mean, you and I talked about this before, David, the resume has
God.
to be done well in order to even get put in the yes pile, to even then get in front of the recruiter,
Yep.
to even get in front of the hiring manager. So there's so many layers and steps to all this.
I think I leave that to listen, I do that. I am so honest throughout my whole career. I will sit there and say, listen, the interview was great with you. I got to tell you, this has been great, but this is not,
Mhm.
and I'd say, listen, if you do want to make a submittal, I can't submit this because I know that person. And I know you for years. I'd be saying, Amy's not going to go for this. I'm sorry.
Mhm.
She's going to look at that and it's going to be like, no, like spelling errors. There's just different things. And listen, we've talked about with AI and all these functions, there's no excuse
Yep.
why you can't have a really good resume, just professional. We're not going to go into everybody says, you know, how you got to have all these bullet point, you got to have all the ATSs, and that was
Mhm.
another show.
Yep.
But as long as it's really looking sharp and you've put some time into it,
Yeah.
that recruiter should be the one that's telling you this. I mean, that's just me. Maybe I shouldn't say it, but I do, and they respect that, and they'll
Yeah.
send it back to me updated, especially when the dates are wrong. It's like, come on, you know. But you know, I wanted to ask you before I lose this train of thought. When you do your interview and you've gone through it, and say you didn't get it, it's been 2, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, say a month down the road, 2 months even, and the job's back up again, and you felt they told you you did a really great job and all that stuff. Do you reapply? I have one
I would say
scenarios with different
yes.
managers, maybe, but
Yeah, I mean, I would pause on that, but I think everybody's situation and scenario is different, and you don't know what you don't know, and it doesn't hurt.
right,
And it doesn't hurt that, I mean, so yes, apply, go through the whole process again, and see like what actually, what comes of that. Because I mean, it could be a disconnect somewhere.
right.
There's all sorts of things that you don't know, but don't read too much negativity into it. Just apply and go again.
That's what I mean. And if I knew like there was say a different manager, and I've done that, shouldn't not
Mhm.
many many years ago. There
Yep.
was a different manager. I'd be like, hell yeah, reapply. I like you.
Yep.
You know, reapply. Let's do this again.
Yep.
Boom. And then there again, look what the gentleman did to me with the Facebook. There, look, he got a job.
Yep.
I like how you said you don't know until you know. What's the worst that's going to happen? That's why I always tell people when they don't connect with you on LinkedIn and all this other, listen, there's no connection,
Right.
you know. So I just had to get out there. Um,
Wait,
I
Dave,
want
I
to
want to
get
tell you a story. So I was hiring for a general manager in Little Rock, and I was looking at, and I had a recruiter that was really awesome, and she gave me, like seven or so resumes, and
right,
I looked through them, and I threw a bunch in the no pile, and I gave her about two or three that I was willing to look at, and then
right,
she's like, "Why did you put this one in the no pile?" And I'm like, "Look, because it's like 4, 5
yeah,
pages long." And she's like, "But I think that you really should talk to her." I'm like,
right,
I mean, and then she opened up the 2 or 3 pages and showed me her experience. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to argue. If you want me to talk to her, I'll talk to her. Bring her in.
right,
So I brought her in and interviewed her and hired her. And I told her, I said, "You were in the no pile." And I said, "It's only because of this recruiter
right,
that knew me well enough and that could, push me a little bit, that, I decided to bring you on and actually interview you." I said, "Your resume is not good." And,
right,
and luckily we had a good enough relationship where, I
good,
wasn't, she took it, constructive criticism. But I mean, I'm not going to read a
right,
resume if it's not in my face in the first two
right,
pages and give me the words that I'm looking for. You're in the know. I mean, if
right,
I have 100 resumes, and you get a lot of
yeah,
resumes, 100
wow.
resumes, I'm going to put as many in a no pile as I possibly can, just to get myself down to the yes, and then I can start feverishly working through those. But I mean, you've got to give me a reason to put you in the yes pile. But you
I
can't
like
give
that.
me
Yeah,
a
give me a
four-page
reason.
resume and think that that's going to be okay.
And that's the thing. A lot of people don't realize. You know, they think recruiters. Let me tell you, recruiting for higher up positions or even some, it's not all fun and games all the time because you're actually the middle person.
Mhm.
So listen, you know, you really feel great for you want to get this person in front of them, but you can't get it in there in time. You keep saying, "Wow, this is a good person. Why aren't they getting interviewed? Why didn't they get the listen, that's me. I've gone through that in my head like, "Wow, I wonder why they didn't choose him." It's not my business, but I will ask sometimes, was there something this person did because I don't think there's nothing wrong with that because that person's going to give you some feedback.
Mhm.
Maybe there was something that you just didn't ask, you know, that you found out. Listen, it can go both ways.
Right. Yeah, and I think that that's really, as a recruiter and
Yeah.
knowing the hiring manager and knowing really what they're looking for, their personality.
Yeah.
And I mean, they're not always going to tell you certain things. There was this guy I was looking at for a VP of the, like the northern region,
Right.
and he they wanted him to be in Canada, and the VP, there was the resume. I mean, this guy was great, and he was in Chicago. And I said, look, I really think you should talk to this guy. I know you want this person to be in Canada, but I
Right.
think that he's great. And I said, I would love for you to talk to him. He's like, you know what? I'm going to.
Right.
And then he actually talked to him, and he created a position for him in Chicago and hired him. But
Okay.
he was gung ho on hiring somebody in Canada, and it chose the, luckily it worked out that we got this guy, and he was phenomenal.
And
Um,
you got it.
but it's all a matter of knowing the hiring manager, what they're looking
Right.
for, personality, how far you can push them, and really just make sure that you're following up and following through and giving them the people that they need. You got
And
the
I even tell people, don't stop interviewing. Don't stop.
right,
You know, you might have 2 more set up. Don't sit there and say, "No, I'm gonna wait on this one." Don't. That's
right.
just me, and I'm very honest with that because you just don't know. That's you got that 2 week, if you wanna say you don't know period.
Mhm.
The stress, that's what the show's about. The stress while you're going to do it, the stress in the middle, and the
Right.
stress at the end. But my advice would not to stop. If you have another interview, and you can be honest and tell the person,
Mhm.
you know, I'm still interviewing, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I mean, nowadays it's different. I don't know. Years ago, I don't think I would ever have said that. Yes, I'm still interviewing. I mean,
Right.
just some things I don't know. I'm old school, and I don't know if I'd say that even now because I don't want them to think. But there you go. You're thinking. You're
Yes.
that emotional part of you. You're like, damn it.
It's not. I mean, it's really not their business if you are interviewing or not. I mean,
Right. I never asked that. I don't ask that question. I don't.
it only becomes pertinent if they're giving you a job offer, and
Right.
they are and you have another interview, that you can say, look, I am interviewing and waiting for this job offer to come in, and you
Mhm.
compare the two and be honest that way. But I would not personally
Well,
share that with anybody else. I would
yeah.
just go with
I feel the same way. What like you just said, I think it's perfectly said. You
yeah.
just don't know. You don't know.
Okay, I
But
want to ask
no.
you, when you're interviewing somebody, and I'm not talking like the entry level, but more of like the manager type,
Right.
and what if they don't have any questions for you at the end? What's your takeaway from that?
I'm gonna tell you that quick story that I had happened to me. Not saying that it happened to anybody, but listen, this person interviewed me at the end of the story was they at the end was 20 minutes of questions, and they were legit questions about when the benefits start. Just
Hmm.
ones that I would probably ask. But when that person said that, I went to your profile and I noticed you were at a job for so many years, and I had to think, well, was he not promotable? Were you not promotable? Or are you happy where you work? And I'm telling you, for a recruiter, if anybody was asked that question at first, I stop and breathe and listen. And I'm like, wow, I had to tell him, you know what? I got to give you credit, young man, for asking that question. But yes, it's work balance, work life balance. That is why I am not higher in some positions in my past where I was because
Hmm.
I was happy what I was doing. You know a lot about companies, and you're just like, no, I'm happy where I'm at. I'm okay where I'm at because it's okay to be content. But you should. But he's like, well, some people move on after the 5 years or 6 years, whatever he wanted to say. I was like, okay, you keep asking, But I got to give it credit for that question. That was funny. But the other stuff, it kind of gave me a little respect.
Hmm.
It was just curious.
Right.
Some people don't have a question. I think it's okay. I mean, I'm going to ask those questions. Healthcare, I'm going to ask that when you get it because that's a big thing with families.
Right.
Let's face it. You don't have healthcare. Look, why would you want to work? And you know, um, somebody was saying the other day on a show I was listening, and they said, "Is it okay to say is the salary negotiable?" Well, I mean, I'm not sure if that's a good thing to do when it's offered to you first, or when you know this is a salary and you say, okay, say it's 100,000, and you say right in that interview, well, I'm in the 120 range. I get that, I really do. But some people don't do their research and they don't even read the job description. Oh no, that's too low. Well, why'd you even that? Well, you applied. So that just tells you, but I don't know. But I do respect somebody asking questions because I would. You have to have something like you're engaged with it. You would want to be
Yeah, it's a negative for me if somebody comes in, they don't have any questions.
right.
At least ask something. Now, if I did that great of a job telling you everything about it, sure, but I mean, I want to know that you're interested in learning more. Ask about our KPIs. Ask
Right.
about growth opportunities. Ask about those kinds of things. That's what I want. I want questions to come back,
Right.
then I know that you've done your research. You've done that you're interested. And
Yeah.
if you don't ask any questions at a management level, that is definitely noted. Doesn't
I've
mean you're
shared
not
LinkedIn
interested.
profiles with each person. I've shared,
Yeah,
oh, here you go. Here's a profile. You get to know the person.
right,
They would watch it, especially now with you being on here. They would be like, okay, I know she's going to ask some questions, but you know what I mean. But you expect that. You kind of expect that. So I do. Again, I kind of respect it because I would. If it just comes to that short ending and that's it, that just tells me you didn't even look into it. There's nothing wrong with looking at your notes then saying, hey, can I ask this? Or
right.
you have off holidays? You know what I mean? All those kind of basic ones. You've got the thing of the job, and it's okay to ask about. Do you have to work a lot of overtime? And I think the way you word it, I think that's the way it has to be said. It wouldn't just be, well, you have to work overtime all the time. Your body, the way you say it. What is the worst schedule? Have you seen them work a lot of weekends? Maybe like
Mhm.
just
Right.
practice, practice, write it down. That's all I do. I'm telling you all the time. I write it down. I say it. I try to read the questions before if I was doing an interview.
Right.
You
I
know,
want to go
it's.
back to that salary.
I
Uh,
know. Yeah, I saw your face on that.
Man, I'll tell you what. That is one thing. The first person, the rule of thumb is the first person who talks about salary loses.
Mm,
So the last thing that you want to do is start talking about that early on. I mean,
right.
never ever bring up salary until you're made an offer.
Right.
Now, if they're paying $100,000 and you want 120,000, you keep quiet
Right.
until you actually get the offer.
Right.
Then you can negotiate. It's because if you start telling me right now that 100,000 is too low and I will only
Yeah.
take it for 100, well, I haven't offered you the job yet.
Right.
So we're not ready for this conversation. So don't talk about salary until it's actually
See, I
um,
go both ways. I go back and forth because the way you just said it, I was like, yeah, I agree with that. And then I agree with something else. I'm like, I go back and forth. But yeah, I agree, especially for something like that, 10, 15,000, 20,000. I mean, I think that is negotiable.
right,
That can be because you don't know whether it's bonuses. You don't know whether there's all other different things. So I kind of see your point on that. Now you're looking at 180 or you're talking 50, 80,000. Why would you even apply for that job?
right.
And you said it numerous times. What's your worth? You know what that job should pay reasonably.
Oh, I mean, if you, that is one thing that if anybody gets caught off guard by a salary, then you have not done your homework. I mean, there's Indeed salary, there's
Right.
Glassdoor, there's, I mean, there's so many places that you can look for
Right.
an average salary for that position and that location. And then does that sit well with you? I mean, are you willing? Uh, uh, is that something that you can do? Is that in your
Right.
ballpark? And then have an idea what you're willing
Right.
to take, and then see how things unfold. I mean, I was offered a job, made really good money, and then they came back and gave me another $10,000. I'm like, wow. I mean,
I'll
I'll
take
take
it.
it. But I
I'll
mean, I
take it.
didn't even ask for it. It was just something that they were doing some salary adjustments, and I was
And
like,
that's where I think you knock it out on that interview. You really knocked it out well, because I like how you said that. It's not time for that conversation yet. For that, when you're
right,
only talking a little bit of difference there, that they should be able to. But I don't listen. In my career, I've never said that. I always go. Maybe it's my problems. My problem. But I always say if like where my next journey is going to be. They call it a journey if you want to say it like that. where am I going to be 5 years from now? That question there, like when I get asked that all the time, I'm always like, damn, what? That question is just drives me bananas. You know, you can practice everything that you want to say. You can practice it all you want. I don't know what, as a recruiter, sometimes listen, I don't, if I have to ask it, if I'm mandated, I will. But
That serves no purpose. So my
I don't,
questions, I want to know what you've done in your past. Tell
right,
me a behavioral type. I'm going to ask you behavioral type questions because then
right.
I know what you have done. If I'm going to ask you that question, where do you see yourself in 5 years? I'm going to tell you everything that you want to hear. And
Yeah,
I'm going to make
exactly.
sure that I am
Yeah.
telling you everything you want to hear. Doesn't make it true, but
Right.
those questions make no sense to me. I don't ask them. It's not valid.
It's not.
Um,
That's just something in old they always ask, and listen, even when I was asked that, I'm like, well, growth as long as I can move to the next level or blah blah. Like you said, you're
yeah,
gonna say what they want to say, and a good recruiter knows that too. Listen, I got to ask this question. I might even say to them, listen, I don't want to ask this question, but I do. There's nothing with breaking when you're doing an interview. It's okay to have fun too, like laugh and
yeah, yeah,
get back and relax a little bit. And, you can tell the way that person is in the beginning. And then when you're all the way through, because sometimes you'll talk about something else, a story,
yep,
and then you go back to something else. So, you know, that there, I agree. It just depends.
yeah.
It depends on what you want to do. And I don't know, but all right, young lady, this could have went on and on and on. We're at almost 45 minutes, so I usually
Wow.
try to keep it at 30, but it goes so quick.
Geez.
And again, with these shows, look at all the trees that I kill,
Oh my gosh, Dave.
and I didn't even get through page two. You know, I didn't even get through page two. The call to action, all these other different things, and but I hope people get from this is my. I'll let you say it after this, but my input is just, it's a roller coaster. You gotta write things down. You gotta just don't over question yourself when you're done that interview because everybody's done it. I've done it. Oh my God, I blabbered on. Even when I was talking in my mind, I was like, "Wow, shut up, Dave." Just shut up. And you could see the person like recruiter when that starts happening. You could still turn an interview around. I feel that if it doesn't start out right, that
Mhm.
first 5, 10 minutes, but then I've seen 15, 30 minutes later, I'll be like, whoa, I kind of like this person.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
They're nervous. Everybody gets nervous. Some people don't interview well.
Right.
They don't. And I think as a recruiter, you can read that. And then, real quick, you bring up their family and you see that big smile, like, hey, what do you like to do after your work? Like hobbies. And you can see with children and everybody loves kids and likes to do that. That puts smiles. Your hobbies. I know some people say, don't tell them your hobby. You do tell your hobby. Listen, I don't know what to tell you. I think it just all depends on that interview, what you're going
Right.
for. But
Right.
I just would tell people be patient. It's a roller coaster of stress, but try to breathe through it all and don't overthink, and just follow the process. And everything, I like how you said, everything has its time
Yep.
to bring it back up. If you didn't get that job, so be it. You weren't meant to go there. You were meant to go somewhere else, and that's just the way it is. So I'll let you end it on that then.
So I want the takeaway to be do your homework on the company,
Yeah.
figure out the questions that are typically asked, write them down, and write down your answers to those said questions. And make sure that you rehearse it enough that it
Yeah.
feels comfortable, that you have enough of the items to describe really good responses for them, and make sure that you are confident. You dress the part. If you don't know where this place is, go
Right.
find it before you are
Yeah,
find
it's
out.
like a bucket. You've always talked about a bucket. There's so many pieces of the puzzle for
So
that
many.
one thing. For that one thing. That
Yep.
one little piece that you were just talking about could be thrown off, and look what happens.
Yep. And
You
make sure
know,
you have your resume ready to go. Make sure the
yeah,
grammar, the spelling,
everything.
again, that you dressed appropriately, and a handshake, not so hard, but don't do the limp handshake. I
I
just
know, I
stand
know.
that. But I mean, and just really and don't overshare,
Right.
and don't
I like
over
that.
talk. Body language is important, and just do a good job.
And there's so much you can look with, even anything. Google if you have a question with it. And like I said, practice on a video. Videos is the norm nowadays still for that first one sometimes.
Yep.
And practice on it. Make sure everything works right. Make sure everything's good, and there's nothing wrong. Again, practice, and once you get to that third, fourth interview, you're an expert, and you'll always be like, all right, I'm just going to shut up, answer the question. That's it. Stop and answer questions at the end. So, all right, young lady, I will talk to you right after this video. So, but we went 45 minutes, so
All right.
we're
Awesome.
better. Usually it was an hour. Sometimes that we cut it back. So, all right, everybody, we'll be back very soon. Talk to you soon.